Episode 143 Above Ground Podcast. It's complicated.
Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means medical professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundation for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Are you ready to lace up your boots, throw up your horns, and jump into the pit? Then let's stomp the stigmas of mental illness. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now, Will Foley and Timothy Patrick.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to
Above Ground Podcast.
Above Ground Podcast, because you can't serve below.
No, you can't.
What up, TPP?
What's up, Will?
How we doing, brother?
We're holding on.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How we holding? We holding tight? We holding on loosely?
Nice.
Gotta hold on loosely, brother, and don't let go.
Don't let go. Nice.
Our
Nice.
topic this week is complex post-traumatic stress disorder or complex trauma. I was trying to figure out if they're one and the same. I would like to think that they're kind of one and the same, but I was kind of confused because is complex trauma just like a different way of saying?
Or maybe complex trauma like leads to complex PTSD?
Yeah, I was wondering that myself, because is it the complex trauma that causes the complex PTSD?
I don't know.
But trauma literally means wound, injury, or shock. And a traumatic event is one that a person finds overwhelming. And we all differ in what we find traumatic. And one situation for one person might not be traumatic, but for someone else it could devastate them. Because we all have different abilities and capacities and availability.
Yeah, and I think also, being different people, we are more susceptible to different things, right? I mean, your
Yes.
childhood and upbringing is not going to be the same as theirs, and yeah, for sure.
But what makes it complex is that complex describes a particular type of trauma that goes beyond a one-time incident. And it happens a lot because it's repeated and ongoing, and it's difficult to escape from. It often occurs within a personal relationship. It begins in childhood, so that it affects a child's development. And if it's covered up or kept secret,
right,
or denied, and
I think of like you said, I think it's more of a sustained exposure to trauma. So whether it's like three different trauma, or if it's like abuse for multiple years.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's tough. I know some of the symptoms of CPTSD are difficulty regulating emotions, loss of system of meanings or worldview, distorted perception of the abuser as well, if it's an abuser, if it's that kind of a situation. Interpersonal difficulties, so any kind of interpersonal relationship, is going to be difficult. Interruptions in consciousness. And, of course, we have the winner, negative self-view.
Yeah, bingo. There's your big one right there.
There's probably a lot of blame, unfortunately, that probably comes along with some of this stuff, just because, especially if it was endured in childhood.
Well, that's the thing. Most cases, complex trauma begins in childhood or adolescence.
Okay.
So it's, again, like a traumatic event is usually a public event or something that, like a one-time thing, an accident, maybe a natural disaster. But now, granted, if you're in a natural disaster, you could develop complex trauma because of the way you view the situation and what happens.
Yeah, yep. I agree with that. I wasn't sure if that, I don't know too much about complex PTSD, but I feel like that is definitely an aspect of it for sure.
But like natural disasters, war, being a victim of a crime such as being raped or assaulted or held up in a carjacking, being involved in or witnessing a serious accident, being exposed to death, injury, or violence through work or volunteer roles, being exposed to an unexpected tragic or stressful event, such as an unexpected death of a loved one or complicated or violent childbirth, or even enduring painful or degrading medical procedures, interpersonal violence or abuse, and a serious lack of care, emotional connection, or neglect, particularly when a baby or young child, including prolonged separation from caregivers. Now, that's what a traumatic event includes. That's
repetitive trauma.
Well, those are traumatic events, but a lot of those are single events. Often, you're not going to get into a repeated car accident day after day, or
right, okay.
Or you're probably not going to get carjacked every day. And not to minimize any of that by any stretch, but if you look at it at the event, that's not going to be complex because it's a one-time, it's one-time, often situational, or it's
and like
something
you said,
that happens.
kind of born out of childhood.
But complex usually is born out of childhood or adolescence, yes, where there's a sense of not being able to escape. Not feeling safe.
Yeah.
And that's really a big, huge thing because complex trauma often occurs within relationships that are meant to be safe.
Well, that's one of the things that there was 3 factors that differentiate PTSD from CPTSD. One of them is the trauma was inflicted by someone close to you.
Yeah, and that makes it 10 times worse.
Sure.
Because oftentimes you cannot escape, or you don't feel like you can. Even if you had the option, you might not, because the problem is that with those types of relationships, there's so many levels to it.
Yeah. And then picture this. Here's the second one, is the trauma was inflicted by someone who you continue to have to see on a regular basis.
Right. That's huge, dude.
That's like a trauma probably every time you have to see the person.
Yes.
Like, what I mean? These little
that's walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
That's setting off alarm bells galore.
And the third one is the trauma was consistent and frequent.
Yeah. We all have the innate need to attach to the people that we think love us or we consider loved ones. And when a caregiver isn't safe, it causes the conflict inside. And that leads to even more layers of it because you're confused by it. Why is this happening? And then the secrecy and the shame that often comes with covering up stuff. That, such as like sexual assault or domestic violence where, people want you to put on the brave face. Your abuser wants you to put on the brave face and smile and say everything's okay when it's really not. And that causes a trauma in and of itself every time you have to do that.
Sure.
So it's hard to escape from that.
Yeah, they say that in again with the I think one of the hallmark feature is just the constant exposure to a traumatic experience.
Absolutely, because it's repetitive.
Right.
It's over a course of time, and it may be a long time.
I have a thing here. It says PTSD is diagnosed by symptoms that fall into 4 categories, and this also has symptoms of CPTSD as well. CPTSD survivors share these same symptoms with those who suffer from PTSD, along with a long list of others. While most CPTSD survivors might encounter all PTSD symptoms, all PTSD survivors do not endure all the CPTSD symptoms. re-experiencing the trauma through intrusive memories, flashbacks, or nightmares. Changes in mood and thinking, including feeling distant from other people and having overwhelming negative emotions and distorted thoughts and beliefs. Avoiding people, places, situations, or thoughts that remind survivors of their trauma, which is probably, especially if childhood, you avoid it that much, you're stuffing it, and that's where, that's where it gets lost.
Yeah.
You
And then
know?
it comes back, and it's...
And then hyperarousal, including sleeplessness, hypervigilance, irritability, angry outbursts, difficulty concentrating, and generally feeling on edge.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, the list is pretty fun.
Yeah, so there's also this list of physical and mental health problems that can come with it. Depression and anxiety, sleep problems, feeling suicidal or using self-harm to cope. Unexplained body aches and pains, including migraines, stomach and digestion troubles, and arthritis. Type 2 diabetes, sexual difficulties.
Weird with the type 2 diabetes, huh?
Low energy and fatigue. Well, I think that part probably comes from people probably self-medicating, I bet. Now, granted, though, I don't know if that... Because, again, and it kind of actually goes to this part of it, that... in addition, people have often had their development interrupted when they experience complex. So I don't know if that has something to do with it or not. It could,
sure, yeah.
But usually problems with relationships, such as not wanting to be around others and difficulty trusting others, and problems protecting oneself in an unhealthy or abusive relationship. And, of course, the self-medicating things of drugs, tobacco, alcohol, or over and under eating to cope with feelings.
There you go.
And that causes a whole other range of health problems.
Sure. Yeah.
Causes your,
So what I was saying before about kind of stuffing these memories and because a lot of times with trauma and PTSD, you'll find that you have to kind of I don't know the correct word. You have to kind of search for it and find out where it lies within the body because it can hide. And so this is a reason behind that. So the hippocampus files memory under the hippocampus files memory, and then under stress, danger, any kind of trauma, it stops filing the memories, and instead it switches to pumping cortisol. So the cortisol stops us from feeling pain so we can focus on survival. So again, we're built to survive, so instead of focusing on the memories, we focus on surviving. And then when all this happens, the memories during the traumatic events are hidden, and the evidence is hard to gather because it's not saved to the usual place that things are saved to.
Sure, and when that's brought up again, you feel it all over again, and it dumps the cortisol again. And it's the constant dumping of cortisol that is a big problem.
It's kind of like me with electronics. I just can't seem to use them.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that.
No, I know it's not that.
Often people with complex PTSD or have experienced complex trauma can experience disassociation. Often.
Yeah.
Which means to disconnect. And when you speak of disassociation, they're talking about disconnecting with reality and not feeling like oneself, or having lapses of consciousness, or feeling like you're separate from your body. The mind is separate from the body. Which,
I mean, again, when as we talked about, or as we continue to talk about plenty of times, is everything is interconnected. So if one cog is off, there's that whole, the communication between the mind and body and everything else is going to be out of whack, right?
Yeah.
So,
and as Dr. Bessel van der Kolk told us, the body keeps the score, man.
True.
And it is true. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Oh, there's no, that book
Yeah, that's why it's reading from a lot of classes make it a reading. Like you have to read that book. Yeah. Yoga, like to get your yoga, your hours, or to get your certificate. You have to read. A lot of people make you read that book. Yeah, that book's become a very important book in the study of trauma.
Yeah.
Along with so many people are studying trauma now.
Yeah. Peter Levine is a good go-to.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What is the Dr. Bruce Perry?
Yeah. Yeah, Bruce Perry.
Oof.
Oh, dude, that What Happened to You?
Yeah.
The Oprah Winfrey and Bruce Perry book. Yes. That's when I listened to that, I was like, whoa. I was like, yeah, now that explains a lot.
Did you listen to it all?
I think I listened to half of it.
Okay.
And then I think I returned it because I was struggling a little bit, and I was like, okay.
Yeah,
I can only concentrate on so much at one time.
No, he is the way. I don't know what it is. The way I don't know if it's the way that he just like talks about it in a way that is more comprehensible. But man, when there's stuff in that book that is just like, whew.
Yeah, he makes it very easy to digest.
Yeah,
but I'll tell you, it's hard to swallow.
It
man.
is. Yes, that's a very.
You know
good,
what I mean?
yes.
He makes it easy to digest, but it's hard to swallow.
Yeah,
boy.
it's hard to really get a grasp on that because and like he says, it's a lot of this stems from our childhood and it's just we were. In these situations and the way that we're wired, we take things in and, unfortunately some of us are also in more of a trauma, situation and but the body can't really, survive in these situations. So it kind of does what it can. And that's this is a result, I guess.
Yeah, and I should have said it's easy to swallow, hard to digest, because you can swallow what he says.
I knew what you meant.
But you can't. It's very hard to digest when you connect with it and say, "Wow, that's me." That's
when you relate to it.
When you can relate to it, wow, you're like, "Damn."
Sometimes it makes it feel like it's so far away from achieving. Because it's stuff that could be hidden within the body and stuff that you may not even know exists. You may know something is there, but you don't know the root cause. So it just feels insurmountable in a way.
Sure, because it's like being in the dark room. Can't find the light switch.
Can't find the light switch.
And you don't even know where to go, like to look. You're bumping into the chair over here. You're walking into the closet, whatever, because you can't see.
Right.
The prolonged and chronic trauma and the evidence in the field of mental health therapy suggests that solely having traditional disorder of PTSD falls short, in that it does not decipher between individuals who have just experienced one large trauma with individuals who've endured years of repeated trauma, which it doesn't fully encompass the severe, sometimes psychotic effects that prolonged trauma can have on an individual. And when you compound it even more with it being in your household or with somebody that's supposed to...
Right, like you said, a caregiver that, is, and if they, and if so one day they're abusing you and maybe, mistreating you or whatever, and then Tuesday they're like, here, come, and they hug you and they want to feed you, and you're like, that, for a child, that's
for anybody, that's gonna fuck you up, man.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest part. It separates you from who you are because you don't know who you are in that, and it separates you from your true self because you don't know who your true self is because. One day it's this, the next day it could be this part. It's so disruptive and destructive. I don't even know how to like.
We talked to, and I don't remember the episode. We talked to Kelly from, I believe it was up in Canada.
Yes. Yep.
And I read about EMDR. And she swears by it. So I know that that is an option for people with
Yes, that's a form of therapy for complex PTSD.
eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So you have to find a therapist that specializes in it. Sometimes I know there's facilities specifically for that, but usually I think it's a couple of brief doses of stimulus type stuff, and then it's a pattern of sessions. You have to kind of go maybe 7-8 times or whatever. I think depending on the person, but I don't know too much on it, but I remember reading about it just because all I've heard is positive things about EMDR. So I think.
Yeah, there are local places that do EMDR here in the 518 in Albany.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Albany Psychological Associates comes up under EMDR therapists, and Albany LifeWorks and Choices Counseling and Consulting.
Well, I mean, I guess the good news is that EMDR shows that, the mind can heal from this kind of psychological trauma.
Sure, it's all about reprogramming.
Right. And then, I think that's kind of, what we do in general is put out a message of hope, and we try to also come up with, some tools and strategies and, things to equip your tool belt with that will help.
It's hard to offer suggestions to people in bad situations.
For sure.
Because unfortunately, unless you are strong enough to get out of that situation, or something happens to spring you from that situation, a lot of it does fall on the victim.
Sure.
To be able to get themselves out. And not everybody has that option, or has the capability of finding that option all the time.
Right. And it's funny that you say that, because I'm in the middle of listening to that book, What Happened to You, and there was a part where, I don't know if it was Oprah or if it was Dr. Perry, that was saying that they were dealing with a situation of domestic abuse, domestic violence. And the woman kept saying, like, well, when my kids get old enough, I'm going to move out. And Dr. Perry was saying, like that, you don't get it. Like, the damage is happening right now to the kids.
Right.
So when it's still good to obviously, go at some point, but when they get old enough, the damage is going to be done, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah. But it is. I can't imagine how hard it is to escape that situation on that level.
Oh yeah,
I can feel, though, the not having an escape.
Sure.
Because I do remember those feelings as a kid. Mm-hmm. And then
I had those feelings as an adult. I mean, it's true though. It's like at some point, you you get that kind of feeling when either you choose not to ask for help, or you assume that because you have family that they'll help.
Well, I mean, you can ask for help. That doesn't mean people are going to help you.
That's true,
and
too.
That's the other thing, too, that some people don't believe you. And what happens if everybody turns on you? And what happens if you turn everybody against? What happens if the abuse? Because that's what usually happens, is the abuser will turn.
Yeah, sure. It's all about
the tables,
manipulating, and
gaslighting, and all the whole discombobulated thing. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. And that, I think that's when it, like you were talking about, it can develop into like the dissociative identity disorder. I think when all those kind of combined things happen,
Sure. Because it's very painful to be who you are, and then you don't even know who you are.
Right.
Because
it's just, I think it's, again, we've said it before. It's like the body and mind and heart can only take so much. That kind of trauma to endure, especially at a young age, it's just tragic. And I don't know, you know,
And we've heard a lot of stories, man, of the system missing it and just people turning their backs.
well, that's what really, that again, going back to this book, you know, Bruce Perry talks about these situations, and you know, these are kids, and these are kids that, you know, maybe in you know, public school systems, and you know, they're acting out in class, and what does the teacher do but punish them or say, this kid's out of control, I can't handle him, let's you know, do this, and in reality, like, let's sit down and ask
say what is happening.
Yeah,
right. What's happening, or what happened, or what is happening.
So I mean, you know, that whole part was just gut wrenching for me, just because you know, I'm not pointing the finger at schools or teachers or whatever, but they're doing, you know, the best they can. It's just we're in a different world now. Times are changing. It's like we have to, like with everything else, we're like up to date with technology. I got the newest phone. It can wipe my ass. But like, we're still, you know, using this antiquated system that was, you know, used 50 years ago, and it may have worked. But now you're dealing with a whole different monster. Like, we need to start doing something different.
Yeah, well,
I mean, that's just my opinion, but
yeah, well, there's
I know
a whole lot in that. There's a whole lot.
There is.
In that,
I know there is, but I'm just, you know, just because it related to that topic. You know, you got kids that, you know, are going to school doing regular stuff, and then when they go home, the abuse or whatever that happens, you know, we don't know this stuff. And
yeah, school's the only safe place sometimes for a lot of kids.
Right.
It's really their only refuge. And you know, same thing with adults. We're not just talking about kids.
Right.
This isn't just about, but because again, some adults experience some horrible things, man. And
for sure. I mean, I've said it just recently. I said that, and I'm not comparing anything, so don't take it that way. But like for an adult living with mental illness, you know, or living with trauma or any of these things, that goes and tries their best to, you know, we'll say live a normal, in quotes, normal life, to work, and, you know, all these, like, those are like the strongest humans that are like walking the earth right now. You know, it's those silent stories that you don't know about, but they're like fighting this battle, you know, because we don't know about it because it's not on TV and it's not this big, huge event. But
we also don't know about it because people don't want to talk about it.
Okay, right.
You know, and I wasn't trying to cut you off.
No, I agree. That's where I was going with it.
I think that a lot of it is shame, and a lot of it is fear.
Fear.
Because fear is instilled in the people who are experiencing these things a lot of times. And whether it's self-imposed fear.
Right. There's still an element of
or it's fear of legitimately, like, somebody saying, you tell anybody, I'm going to fucking kill you.
Right.
Because that's what happens a lot of times.
Right.
And it affects you and changes you at a chemical level.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't care if you're fully developed or not. There's no way that can't help but change you.
Oh,
you know what I mean? It's got to change you.
That rewires your nervous system. That it just, you're living purely in survival.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. And it's a bad survival.
Right. And that's, you know, that's not sustainable. I mean, that tears the whole body and you know, apart,
and it tears the fabric of everything apart. So it affects everything.
Yeah,
it'll affect your ability to work. It'll affect your ability to connect.
Exactly,
it'll affect
that's
everything.
What I mean. But it's just we don't. Again, I don't know if it's that we just judge these situations, but you know what? Again, if you have it can be an adult at work and they're whatever doing this or that. And the boss is like, you got to step up your game. It's like there could be some other, you know, medical stuff that is happening that we're leaving out of the equation. You know, it's like we like to go down and check boxes, but for some reason we tend to skip over that box. What do you got?
I was just trying to read something.
Oh. That's about all I got on it, man. I don't know too much on this subject.
Now, a lot of people with complex post-traumatic stress disorder will try to. One of their unhealthy coping mechanisms is to distract themselves, and they distract themselves until it drains the entire being, till it drains the entire battery.
Yeah, that's what I
Because-
mean when I was saying like rips your body apart. It just uses everything that it can to sustain life until there's nothing left.
Yeah, there is nothing left.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just a brutal way to exist.
Absolutely, it's a brutal way to exist. Yeah, it's a heavy topic, man.
It is a heavy topic.
And it's, yeah, super heavy.
It says, I'll just read this last thing because I was just kind of looking over it quick. It says, complex PTSD is a severe mental condition that results from sustained exposure to trauma where one was vulnerable, defenseless, disempowered, and or imprisoned without the possibility of escaping the abusive or neglective long-term situation. In addition to symptoms of regular PTSD, complex PTSD incorporates the following 6 symptom groups. Changes in ability to regulate emotions, which we kind of talked about. Deterioration in relationships with others, which is completely understandable.
Yeah.
Somatic symptoms.
Well, there's your body. The
right.
body is keeping the score, man.
Right, and that's where you're...
That comes, dude. That's not just like stomach aches. That's cancer. That's, that's
it creates inflammation within the body.
Yeah,
and that's
it's disease.
Right,
that's disease.
Exactly. Negative alterations in opinion of self, difficulty with attention, and lapses of consciousness, which I guess would be disassociation. Changes in perception of life meaning and feelings of hopelessness.
Yeah, that's... Boy, I don't really know how much more that you could be, like, literally sucked out of at that point.
Yeah.
Till there's nothing left. How do you rebuild that?
One piece at a time.
Okay, one piece at a time. But I mean, how do you even?
Yeah, I don't know.
How do you even start? Like that's where I'm at. I'm like, how do you even start?
This is more like This is like a specialized thing. Like there's people out there that that help.
Yes.
And like I said, EMDR is one of the top ways. Obviously psychotherapy, any kind of medical professional. I would think, some kind of, I don't know if any kind of medications can help with this, depending on your state, depending on where you're at. I mean,
I don't know if adding medication to that necessarily is the first way to do it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because you're already changed pattern wise.
Right.
And I wonder if adding chemicals to that, obviously people do self-medicate, so you'd almost rather have people medicate, naturally or
kind of CBT, some kind of cognitive behavior therapy is
CBT for sure. But again, I don't know if you can just. And I don't think you can just talk your way out of that.
Well, no, you can't. But I'm talking like years of.
Oh yeah,
therapy.
yeah.
I'm talking,
years of therapy.
Yeah, professional help, like probably therapy the rest of your life. To be honest with you.
Yeah, which a lot of people should probably have.
Right. There's nothing wrong with it.
As long as you can afford it, or you're.
Yeah, for sure. As long as it's affordable for you, and
you can get it.
And you can get it.
That's a big problem right now. Is trying to find a therapist, man. It's been
6, maybe 7, and 2. One emailed me back. One ended up texting back like 2 weeks later.
Wow.
And it was weird because it was like. It's just weird. It was like just a random like text out of the blue, and I'm trying to keep the conversation going. Like, yeah, let's set up an appointment, and like, no, it's like, I don't know. I don't know, man.
I do really think
For
that
somebody that is in, like, thankfully, I have some stuff that, I'm capable to hold together. But for somebody that was, like, in the trenches, dude, and that happens to, like...
Well, that
I know.
messes you up.
I get it. Like, and I'm not trying to blame anybody, but, if you're out there and you respond and you have on your website that you're accepting new patients,
Now, they are getting inundated with
I get
a
it.
lot
like
of requests.
I said, I know, but something.
And I'm not making excuses because
Right.
there's no excuse.
I'm just saying, like, the easiest way, even a text, if you can text, just say, no, I'm booked. Nope, sorry, full. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. 3 words. No, sorry, full. Boom, send. Bam.
You heard it. No, sorry, full.
I mean, I hate to be a jerk, but like that, again, if you have somebody that's, in the trenches and they're like, and then again, maybe they tried 1 or 2, you think they're going to continue after, that? I don't know.
I a lot of people won't go past 2, 3, 4 phone calls before they don't get a call back. Again, some people like will give up just easy because it's just they also maybe not even want to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, sure, but that's what I'm saying in general. Like, this is such a touchy subject, taboo, whatever you want to call it, but the stigma behind it, creates people to not want to, you know what I mean? It's like not want to exert themselves because they're almost on the fence.
Right.
So when you get just a teensy-weensy bit of resistance, you let go of the fence and you're like, screw it.
Yeah, I'm not going.
Right.
And you don't go back to the fence again.
It's like,
I'm going to put out a plea to everybody out there listening. If you're not, obviously, if you've listened to the show before, you're probably not this way, but do me a favor. If you're going to find a therapist, do the right thing. Take the appointments, find the therapist. Don't, you know what I mean? Don't try to find a therapist and then kind of like, use the therapy, do the therapy. But again, same thing with therapists. They're often 40 clients deep, and it's.
But I guess what you're saying, don't give up. There is help. There is people out there. You just gotta,
don't give up.
You got to find them, and maybe in the meantime, you can listen to a podcast, or you can check out a YouTube video or a TED Talk or something. Or go to and maybe something peaceful you can do for yourself is go to a bookstore or go to a library. You know what I mean? And sit there by yourself. Go to the library. And
go to the library.
And read a book or whatever, or not even read a book, just, look through some books and get some ideas of kind of what you might be looking for.
Yeah. There's a lot of great information out there, man. There really is. And a lot of it is very helpful, but you also have to put it into use. It has to be used.
I mean, as we've, always said in all these, these episodes we talk about, it's like there's some accountability left on you, on the person that needs to do the improving or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
you're the person.
Unfortunately, for people in that situation, it's very difficult. To move it.
Oh, I get it.
But it's imperative that you try to find the strength to, because if not.
Some kind of step towards the right direction, yes.
Yep. Yeah. And that's what we support, and we're here, man. And, we want you to get out. We want you to find safety. We want you to find self. And
well, because, I think partly because we've found stuff for ourselves, and we know that it's, we've been there. We know that it felt impossible, and we didn't want to do it, and no one cared, and it was useless, it was hopeless, and all that shit, but, here we are, talking about it, and we were lucky to find things that, worked for us, and we got help, and Will's in therapy, and he's doing great in therapy, and I'm super happy that he's stuck with it, and,
Yeah, I actually really like therapy.
Good.
I just, connected with somebody who is willing to work with me and not tell me, oh, it's this way, because that's the wrong. You can't say that to me,
Right.
because that's not. You can't tell me that it's this way, because it's just not. It just doesn't.
Right.
It puts
Right.
up the wall.
And that's another aspect. It takes,
it's a dance. It does take two people.
It
takes
does
a
take
willingness.
2 people, but it could take 1 or 2 therapists to find somebody that
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's
But
just
please don't be undaunted.
Yeah.
Be undaunted. Don't. You can do it, and you can find help.
You can do it.
Oh, night! I was really trying not to make a heavy thing funny, but a little levity is good sometimes.
I had to do it, man. It was just this whole episode. I'm kind of like, oh, it's just heavy for me. I needed to.
Yeah,
I feel like I need to do some jumping jacks or something.
It is. It's tough, man. It's tough to think about some situations that people are unfortunately in, that they never thought they'd find themselves in, or unfortunately are too young to get out of and just born into. And it's, we have to be better people. We have to be more human, and we have to really keep our eyes open, man.
I think that's a really good. We have to be more human.
We do.
Think
We
about
have to
it.
be more. We do. We have to be more human.
And all encompassed of that word. We have to be more human, accept that we are human and we have flaws, and but also understand that we're human and we have some choices and we have the capabilities to do certain things.
Yeah, we do, and that's good. Unfortunately, though, when that's been, taken away from you, it makes it very hard to make that decision and to make that leap and to take that chance. Or
I get it. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. For sure. I mean,
but please, if you're out there struggling and you're out there please try to get help. Try to find somebody. Try to talk to somebody.
Put on a movie. Put on your favorite song. In
a safe place.
Yeah.
In a safe place. But it's imperative, though, if you're in a bad situation, that you try to get out. It really is.
The only way out is through.
Yeah, it is. That is the only way out is through. And we are through with another week of Above Ground Podcast. Thank you so much for being here for the ride. This one was a little bit of a bumpy one, and
it's going to be a bumpy ride.
And as always, you can check out our socials: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
You can email us at abovegroundpodcast@gmail.com.
You got that right. TPP, you got that right. You can also buy us a coffee. I love coffee. Buy us a coffee. No, you don't have to, but if you can, hey,
Yeah, you can support us and buy us a coffee. You can support us by subscribing, sharing. We love all support.
Everybody needs support.
Yeah. We all need some support.
We do.
On that note,
be well.
Be safe.
Be above.